Hello, I'm Jake Boudrot, Civic Journalist at Community Television. In this episode of Strait Talk, I spoke with Corporal Gary McLaughlin, team lead with Nova Scotia RCMP's Northeast Traffic Services Cape Breton, after a community meeting was held on November 6th at the Big Pond Fire Hall to express public concerns about dangerous driving and speeding along Highway 4 between St. Peter's and Sydney. So recently, a community meeting was held in Big Pond. I believe it was at the fire hall. Maybe you can tell me when that was held and what was the reason for that public meeting.
Well, it happened earlier last week, and we were requested to be part of a group of first responders, Big Pond Fire Department, other fire departments along that corridor, and Councillor Steve Parsons, who is the representative of that area. And we have all been in discussions for probably the last year with respect to the statistics of the increase in speeds along the Highway 4 corridor. So that's kind of what triggered that meeting.
And the problems, you just mentioned that along the Route 4 corridor, and that also includes Richmond County, the portion there. And these problems don't exclude Richmond County; they actually include Richmond County, and not just Cape Breton County.
That's correct. In fact, as a response to this increase of challenges that we're facing, the RCMP has added 2 traffic members specifically coming out of the Port Hawkesbury detachment that will specifically address the Richmond County portion of that Route 4 into Highway 104. Again, because we have to really get a handle and get the messaging out to people. We got to slow down.
What are the complaints that the people from the community aired at that public meeting? Was it specifically speeding? Were there other complaints that they were talking about?
It was a complete, it was just a whole bunch of different things. Speed was the bulk of it, yes. However, very much like the Richmond County communities along that corridor, people are out walking their pets, going to the mail, going for a run, doing whatever they want to do. And they just don't feel safe along the sides of the road because of this increase in traffic. And as we look even further out over the next year or two, when the Seal Island Bridge over in Victoria County gets finally fixed, if you will, that's only going to compound the problem, because everybody's then going to be redirected directly through Richmond County and up in Cape Breton County as well. So we're trying to get ahead of it, trying to get the messaging out, one car at a time. But the main complaint along that is, dangerous driving and speeds. Those are the 2 biggest reasons why concerns that we were hearing from the public at that meeting.
So in a recent media interview, you mentioned that you worked pretty much all over Canada in different places, and you said this is going to be one of the worst areas for speeding that you've seen in your time working there. Maybe you can talk a bit about that. Like, how bad is that?
Actually, to correct you, it is the worst spot that I've worked all across Canada. I've worked from British Columbia to Newfoundland, and of course here on Cape Breton as well. We're out there every day, and people are just not getting the message, and we are going to continue to be there and be visible and hold people accountable for these dangerous decisions that they're making.
The other thing that you mentioned too is it's not a matter of, you're talking about speeding and dangerous driving. It's not a matter of people doing 10, 20 over the speed limit. You're seeing speeds 40, 50 and beyond that, double the speed limit in cases of stunting. And I assume you guys are seeing that fairly often, or too often?
Too often is the exact word that I would use. There's always a concern, like you said, with that 20 over margin. That used to be pretty common, but there are so many people that are pushing 35, 45. And again, to your point, recently I stopped a impaired driver that was doing 185 kilometers an hour down that stretch of highway, and which unfortunately resulted in a pretty serious collision. These are the things that we're trying to stop. And again, our commitment to Richmond County as well as Cape Breton County is we are going to be there, and we are going to be visible, and we are going to hold people accountable for these decisions.
You guys are trying to combat speeding. On the other end of the spectrum, is there a problem with people perhaps going too slow, and then others are speeding or passing or driving in a reckless manner as a result of people going too far under? Is that something you guys are seeing, or is that Is that not really what the problem is?
It isn't actually. However, it was brought up at the meeting about some of the corridors, like Chapel Island, for example, which is a 60-kilometer-an-hour zone. And people were saying, why is that stretch a 60-kilometer-an-hour zone? Why is further into Cape Breton County? Why is the Big Pond 60-kilometer-an-hour zone? We as the police, we don't determine that. That's determined specifically by the province. However, my messaging to people that have that concern about those slow down areas, we are talking about a stretch of highway that may be less than 5 minutes of your driving time from A to B. And the fact that those areas are slower, I'm sure there's a perfectly good reason for that. But in the grand scheme of things, what is being asked of you is to slow down for a specific section. Whenever I talk to people in those particular areas, and I always explain to them, if people were speeding along your street or your road or something in the different parts of Cape Breton that you live in, you would want the police to be there to hold those people accountable. The people in those communities deserve that as well. They have determined that that is what they would like through their community. And again, the messaging is always going to be the same. We will be there to hold people accountable. Like just respect the fact that people just want to be able to live their lives and, go get the mail. Again, as somebody commented in the last one, where people are afraid to just walk out of their driveways because somebody could be passing somebody else or doing something. That's not acceptable to anybody.
Getting back to Budletic First Nation, although it is situated on the highway, it is a community and wouldn't be much different in Ayrshire here where the speed limit is 50. So people are driving through a community where you have businesses, you have residents and stuff like that. So it's not like a typical community that's on the highway, because of the amount of people that are there and type of thing. So it's, as you getting back to your point, it's not really the same thing as some of the other parts of Route 4.
Correct. Those people just want people to slow down and respect. There's children, there's businesses, there's just all kinds of stuff happening along those stretches of highway. And again, in the grand scheme of things, we're asking you to slow down for a small bit of your journey. But in the grand scheme of things, in the interest of safety, let's just try to help each other out.
And you mentioned that people were talking about, afraid to take walks, afraid to go to the mailbox or to the garbage box because of the amount. And that becomes a public health and safety matter. And that's kind of, I guess, where you guys are coming from, that, when people are afraid to take a walk, it's a problem.
It's a big problem. And to compound the problem, as you could see right now with the weather is changing very, very rapidly. And what we're asking people to do is to prepare for your winter driving today. Don't wait for the first snowfall. Don't wait for those messages that are going to come out from the police along those times to increase distances and all that. Get your vehicle ready now. We're talking about buy your snow brush today. Get your tires done today. Don't wait until we're covered in snow and you're going to have to make these commutes, because again, you're going to be going through these same stretches of communities along the highway there.
Now, are there particular stretches of Highway 4 that are more problematic than others? It seems from what I've observed, once you get past Budletic First Nation, get down that hill towards Bear Head, it seems to be really where the speeds kind of ramp up almost all the way to Sydney. But within those, in between that area, are there specific stretches that are worse than others? And because, there's some areas where there's turns, there's hills. So is there a tendency for people to slow down, and then when they get into the straightaways and the more straight areas that the speed really ramps up?
That's exactly what it is. These aggressive drivers are looking for those straight areas along the route. However, they are taking a lot of risk. We regularly get people passing on blind corners, and these calls come in all the time. And make no mistake, if we get a plate number, we will be showing up at your home to have a conversation and deal with these matters. So just take it easy out there and look after each other. It's a 2-lane highway, and it's a windy 2-lane highway. There's not a lot of room for error.
Now, can you confirm that the RCMP received 1,500 calls for service on the highway last year? Is that number correct?
That's correct.
That seems like a lot to me.
Well, it is. And again, to the point of why I'm here today and talking to you today, is this is a completely over-the-top challenge that we're facing right now. And we have done this several times before, where we're pleading with the motoring public to slow down. The message is clearly not getting there. And again, the RCMP and with respect to Cape Breton County as well, our policing partners with Cape Breton Regional Police, we are there and we are increasing our patrols. And as a result of that, you're seeing these calls for service. Again, vast majority of that number is speeders, but we're also talking about impaired driving. We're talking about dangerous driving and, just about everything in between. So it's a kaleidoscope of problems that we're trying to tackle right now. But yes, that number is exactly right.
So what are the solutions you can offer? You've kind of been beefing up enforcement, and what else goes in that?
Basically, the media is our biggest partner right now. And like being here today and being asked to come here, this is how we get the message out. This is how we hold people accountable. And one of the things that I'm very, very thankful for is that when the media puts this messaging out on their social media platforms, if they put them out on over the airwaves, the response from the public when you read those comments is almost entirely supportive of that. So people are beginning to understand, and I think you'll see those numbers trend down. However, we do have a lot of work to do to get those numbers down. And the only way we're going to do that is through partnerships with the media, and also just in general, the motoring public to just take it upon themselves to drive safe.
Now, on September 4th, RCMP Northeast Traffic Services officers responded to a report of erratic driving on Highway 4. Essentially, it came down to like a road rage issue in that case there. And is that something that you guys have been encountering much or
Yes.
at all other than this?
Yes, and it isn't a small problem. And it compounds to the fact that people are trying to drive too fast and taking risks and not appreciating when people are actually doing the speed limit. But yes, that is a very big problem along this corridor.
Then on October 16th, RCMP Northeast Traffic Services clocked an eastbound Honda Civic traveling on Highway 4 in Irish Cove at 185 kilometers an hour, which you alluded to earlier. And the 20-year-old driver from Bear Head was charged with impaired driving and stunting. Now, you guys thank the Cape Breton Regional Police who assisted with the crash and that incident. Do you believe that more collaboration is going to be required with the Cape Breton Regional Police and other agencies to help stem this problem?
Absolutely. We need, it's a problem where, we have to get our provincial partners on board. Some of the things that we're starting to see along Highway 4, I call them the shame boards, the speed boards that flash people's speeds. Very, very good way to get people to slow down in your communities. If any other communities would get that along their corridors, we would support that immensely. But yes, it's a multi-partner problem, and we need all the help we can get to get the messaging out. That 185 gentleman was actually me that stopped him. So I'm very familiar with that file. Yeah.
And is that a problem area? You're talking about Irish Cove, that there's quite a few straightaways on that area there I know of. And does that seem to be not the only area, but a problematic area?
It's a very problematic area. Last week I was out there in a 10-hour shift. I wrote 22 people over the posted speed limit, and the slowest of the 22 was 25 over the speed limit. And that was the slowest, all the way up to 50 kilometers over the speed limit within a 10-hour period.
Now, not to pigeonhole anybody or defenders, does it seem to be chiefly younger drivers that are causing these infractions, or is it something that's happening across many age demographics?
No, and that is an excellent question. And when that first came up, when we first started working with the municipality to better target when we were seeing that, we would start to set up, and we were starting to see a trend early in the morning and around 5 o'clock at night. And when we responded to that, we started seeing a lot of student drivers, especially early in the morning, people coming from as far away as Dartmouth trying to get the class up at Cape Breton University. One of the fantastic things that developed out of that is we went straight to Cape Breton University, and the university was huge. We had multiple sit downs with the student bodies to talk about that, that we have to stop this. And the reaction was fantastic. So back then, probably a year ago or so, it was definitely that. It was very, very much during those particular chunks of time, all the kids going to school in the morning, all the kids coming back. Even last year, we had a pretty serious crash in Richmond County involved with a very similar, it was a minivan with a bunch of students, and it was a pretty serious collision. That's exactly what we were talking about. Now, nowadays, you know what? In the summer, we're seeing it's a lot of tourists. In the fall, it's a lot of locals. But, it's kind of all across the board now. We can't really say specifically anymore because we're out there so much, but definitely in the early stages, it was definitely an issue that we saw primarily with the students. And now it's kind of just as more and more people are choosing to come through Richmond County and up into Cape Breton County as opposed to going through Victoria County. That's why we're seeing the increase in traffic volume. And I think unless, we can get people to change their driving behavior, this is a challenge we're going to have together for quite some time.
Now, you talk about students too. You mentioned CBU. Is it also possible that it could be talking about students that go to the NSCC or maybe the Coast Guard College in Sydney as well? Is that also part of that problem? Have you reached out to them?
Yep. You're right. It could be. However, when speaking specifically with the drivers, the vast majority were going to CBU. The vast majority, and and the university stepped right up and we got that messaging out pretty quick.
So you talked about increased enforcement, increased manpower. You also said that those signs that tell people their speed are very effective too. What other tools are you guys looking at, and where are you going from here? I assume you guys are continuing to really monitor this corridor, and you're going to be really doing this for quite some time, I would imagine.
Well, there's nothing random about how we do things. It's a very, very scientific process that we use in our line of work. And there's where we're targeting the enforcement is we are there for a specific reason. There are statistics that show that these particular stretches of highway are the most challenging ones along the corridor. But actually, the biggest way that we get information is from members of the public that call us up and say, "Hey, Gary, this is what I'm seeing in my stretch of highway." And my response to it is, I need to know when, I need to know, time of day, I need to know, stuff like that, because that allows the police to specifically target these areas at the most efficient time. And it's the most efficient use of manpower. And we can get the best results possible if so when the public decides to call us, and we really, really appreciate that. But they need to tell us specifically when, not just, people are always speeding by my home. Well, I'm not here to disagree with that, but I want to hear, between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'm finding that, and that allows us to go, we're going to be there during those times, and we can really address those issues.
Yeah, you need that information to allocate specific resources in specific areas. Otherwise, the enforcement is not going to have that teeth or be able to really.
Correct, because Northeast Traffic Services isn't just a Cape Breton County. We don't just work Cape Breton County. We work the entire island. So we have to be able to allocate our resources effectively. And the best way to do that is when the public reaches out to us for help, they need to provide us with as much specific information as they can. And we'll be there. We'll be there to help them out. Thank you for watching Strait Talk. Please tune in again to find out what we will be talking about.